Felt like
My bald spot.
I think they just felt like they were not.
Yeah,
That's
I noticed that and that chair the other day. I was like, oh my goodness.
the camera.
You know, I've been getting a lot of ads on Facebook that talk about that, because
Sure,
I've been
but
talking about it too, and then I get
the
all
way
the
they
ads
were
for it.
How
treated.
you get all
I
that?
gotta do a chemical DPH or something, and
Yeah,
watch
that-
the
That attorney, our
He's talking
city
about
attorney.
Celebrities, how their
Sure.
hair gets better
Okay.
along with their.
LeBron.
I'm gonna be bringing it up,
Sitting
because I think, I'm gonna be bringing it up, because I think
So
for,
I got lots of ads
Economic
for special
development.
shampoos for that stuff. Yeah.
you wonder,
It's huge.
yeah.
What are we trying to do here?
Participants.
Oh, here we go. Ready? Okay, this is our monthly EDA meeting. It's January 28th. And Rebecca, if you're gonna do the roll call
All right, Mayor Ikorst,
here.
Jamie Rothy, Daniel Spring,
Here?
Adam Beedling,
Here.
Kathy Gable, here, Jan Thronson. All right, and then we, for those who don't know, we do have an open seat right now. Jamie, or not Jamie, sorry,
Jeff.
Jeff has decided that he was going to withdraw this year, so.
Bummer.
So we do have a spot open, so we'll be needing to advertise that. I believe Jason's already got that going.
Yep, created a volunteer site on the page of the city's webpage, so there's a new subpage.
Saw
of
that.
Volunteering, and it's on there with the application. We got some applications at City Hall here, so if you know anybody who would like to serve on a board, we've got quite a few openings we're trying to get filled.
New people. I know I already asked Grant if he'd do it.
He's here anyway, right?
You know, we
You might as well.
Might as well join us.
Okay, approval of the January 28th or December 19th. Oh, approve the agenda first
Yep.
for tonight. Any adds or changes? Seeing none, all those, I'll make a motion, we approve the agenda. So moved.
Second,
Comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, approved. Now we have the December 19th minutes. Any changes or amendments to it?
I do rather long minutes. If you,
What's that?
I said, I do rather long minutes. Some places they're very short and sweet, and I'm just a little more detailed.
Seeing none, somebody'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
so moved.
I'll second it. Any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, it's approved. New business. So we have, Daniel is our, council representative with us now, so myself and Daniel, so.
You prefer Dan or Daniel?
Daniel, please.
Daniel, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
How long you lived in Orinoco? 8 years?
Yeah, 8 years now.
5 years?
Yeah, 9, yeah, 8 or 9.
Lives over in River Park, on Second Avenue, Fifth Street, so. Welcome. Hope it works out with your schedule and everything. We got a lot going on like everybody else, so.
Raise your hand.
Winter schedule or summer schedule, who knows, but.
Anything else on that item? Okay. So the first of the year, we have our elections and, I was the president last year. Jamie was the vice president.
Can we make a motion that we continue that?
We just need a nomination and then a vote.
Okay, I nominate Ryland for president and Jamie for vice president.
I'd second that. Seems sensible for both the longer terms and continuity.
Okay. Thank you, appreciate that.
All right,
Any other
well,
comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved? Secretary,
I put that down there just so that I can let you guys know as a note what we put in our bylaws. The executive director, if there is one, which is myself, will be acting as a secretary because I do your minutes. So if you didn't have me, then you'd have to vote amongst yourselves for it. But since you have me, you don't have to. So
What about the treasurer?
treasurer is typically the city clerk. So right now that's going to be Jason. But we did again put in the bylaws that it would be city staff. So we're still covered by all of that. But just wanted to make sure everybody kind of knew. All right, so we're all set for the year for that. Commercial permit updates, as far as I'm aware, there are no new commercial permits that were submitted since the last meeting.
before we do that, do we have to go back and look at our terms? Re-identify our terms with Daniel coming on, and
Oh, we can do,
we
yeah.
lost our 1 year now, so now we have a different, it's not on the agenda, but I wonder if we should, or if you want to put that in the minutes, how we all moved that 1 year.
Well, actually, if you guys take a look, in your packets, there is one that's stapled together, and that is your annual report. If you take a look actually on page 1, so on the inside, there is our commissioner overview, so that will actually show you right now when your terms are up. And then it since your guys' seats are attached to your council position, so it technically will be up in 4 years or 2 years, sorry, 2 years, but so they don't technically have to go by these 6 years, but otherwise EDA is a 6-year term. It's the longest one that the state has. Sorry, can't change it. But so right now, Adam, I know you're up in December of this next year. And then Kathy, you are up in 2026.
So then is whoever comes in for Jeff to take his place, gonna assume the 2027?
Yep, he'll be taking that one, yep. Or yes, sorry. Thank you.
So the reason like Jan is 2030 is because he's serving a 6-year term. And the reason that I'm 2026 is because I filled in for somebody else's term.
Yes, but also just to note, they try to keep everything rolling, so they're on separate years. So the very first people on, one person at a 1-year term, one at a 2, and all the way up to 6, yeah. So some of them just started out shorter. We just are more than happy to have you sign up for a 6-year term when you're finished. Did anybody have any questions about term lengths or?
Thanks for that. I'm glad you have it in your report.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
All right.
Commercial, I think there's none available, so.
Yep, so next thing we've got is the annual review. The annual report review. So I put this together every year. That way our EDA is able to approve it, say, yes, this is what we did this year, and then we'd be able to put that out to the public. We also go ahead and make sure that it goes into council packets so that they're aware of the accomplishments that we've had over the past year, as well as what our plans are going into this year. So on here, underneath economic development EDA enhancement and development this past year, we did EDA board member training at the start of the year. We established our bylaws. We did additional training on the EDA. We also did tax increment financing training that we ended up taking. With community engagement and community development, we did that huge community engagement project. And again, all the details are in here as well. On this one, it did include all of the marketing that got done, the surveys, in-person meeting, and the final report. A little bit bigger of a project, so there's a lot more information there on that. And then we also have been working on residential and commercial development with a couple different opportunities. So those are also noted in there because we did take plenty of meetings with them and work with them on the outside of our regular hours. And then it comes our financial performance. Usually this would be where I would put a budget, but we don't have one yet. So I'm just putting in here what our incoming funds were for the year, which includes the Compere financial grant and the Southern Minnesota small towns grant. So that would be $15,000 there that we took in. Outgoing funds, community engagement was the $2,575. And that came out of the $5,000 Compere grant. And then the remainder of that went towards my hours So that took some of the burden off of that. So actually that should be budget money for the EDA then. Well, because it's not, they budgeted for my hours, so the money that comes back should be left in our operating budget. The money that we haven't used, we should have in an operating budget.
Okay.
Because our operating budget should be what you guys are paying me out of. And then if, for example, we get grant money, that's our money. And it has to be spent by EDA.
Yeah.
So if they've already given us our budget to pay for my hours, then that should be additional money that we have to be able to do projects in the community. So I don't know what's been being done. I hadn't really thought about it that much till I got to my annual report, but because we didn't use all 5,000 towards specifically physical things that we were purchasing, we did put the rest of it towards the hours it took to do all of the marketing and those kind of things, because that was covered by the grant as well. So that money should have gone towards my contract, but that means the money that goes towards the contract that we didn't spend, we should have that in an operating budget, so that again, we have the ability to do our job as well. So I think we'll maybe look into that.
Look into that.
Yep. And then the other is our CETA contract, which obviously was the $30,000 that will be going down this next year. But just so everybody can kind of see what we all have happening.
No comment. So this budget that remaining is $2,424.61.
Yep.
That's what you're saying goes in the operating budget or?
Yep, because that should have been left over to pay towards my contract, but then that means that there should be money left over that we would have otherwise spent on it that should still be left in our coffers, if that makes sense.
So that's what we put into our revenue side of the 100.
Sure.
Because that wasn't addressed during the
sit down and
budget
look at
meetings. That
Yeah,
was.
I think that's-
No, because they didn't talk to us at all about it before doing the budget meetings, which was the
No.
problem. Or it would have probably.
The only thing we talked about was the contract stuff, and I didn't know to
Yep.
talk about.
Yeah, so that is something we will need to take care of, because by state statute, we do need to have a budget. EDAs use money all the time for planning, research, those kind of things. So we will need to make sure that at some point this next year, we establish a fund or a budget that we can reference to each month on our packets. But again,
Who oversees accounting for, we don't have an accountant, I imagine?
Right.
Who does our accounting for the city?
Well, we do our own internal. We
Okay.
have Smith and Schaefer do the audits.
Do the audits, we do our own internal? Okay.
But we have a software package that a new software package that we picked up from BS&A, which we're in the process of implementing. So
Yeah. Is the city's budget public record and easily defined? Is that
it's on the website.
It is, the full budget is?
Jason put it under a finance committee.
I don't know if I've got the 2025 up there yet, because I'm still dealing with a lot of end of the year
No,
stuff
it's there.
and everything finalized, but is it the 2025
I
final?
looked at the other day.
It's under the what, Jason? The,
So under the city government section, tab at the top, there's a drop down for city departments, and in the city departments, there's a finance section. And under that, on that page, it's,
So what's on there is the preliminary budget we adopted in September. And then we had there's like one of more iterations, but then there's approved one that was approved at the December meeting.
right.
Okay.
And it's at the top of the list.
So kind of a similar, but I don't want to stray too far off the agenda, but what about like, today I was looking at the website at the residential, and the R1 and the different zoning things, and I was, yeah, and I was looking at, it doesn't really very descriptive as to like what can go where, right? So like, for example, the commercial place that
Mhm.
Amy listed just off of Irv's, trying to identify like what could go there. And I don't, there's no like, building height restrictions, building width, does there need to be off-street parking, all these kind of things.
So if you go to the 151 codes, and there's a breakdown, under same breakdown menu under P and Z committee, and then there's a codes, and it has 151 codes is the land use codes.
Okay,
And that's where you pick up all the user permits and whether it's conditional permitted or not permitted.
okay.
And but there's also a description within that 151 code. There's probably a dozen different breakdowns, but you see a commercial B1, B2.
Well, see, then that's what I saw. I think, but I didn't see anything that got into building height restriction or
I
like.
don't think we have anything building height.
So hypothetically, I could buy that half acre, 0.4 acres and build 30 stories up if the structure allowed to go up.
Should be based on the fire department.
There's height limitations in there.
Okay.
Typically set by your fire department.
As far as like a 12-plex or 16-plex or 32, there was residential and multifamily. It was the multifamily, the orange, but in the business district along Minnesota Avenue, can a person do an apartment building?
I don't think there's, apartments aren't in our codes right
In
now.
under the historical B1.
So in the historical, I believe that you can have, it's a commercial front,
Okay.
but there might be room for like a living space above it. But I don't know that you can do
Sure.
necessarily.
Like what Rochester pushing for is.
Yeah.
Main
But
level
our
commercial and-
ordinances don't allow living in your upper floors of a business.
Okay, so I know everything's
residential
kind of getting
business.
redone. Everything's getting redone. The codes are being rewritten and they'll be a little bit more
That's, okay,
clear.
yeah, okay. That's, yeah. I probably wouldn't really want to pursue that land, but it's pretty affordable and it's 0.4 acres and it's right there and
Mhm.
Jan's got the property next door and all of a sudden you got, 3/4 of an acre and can you do something? But I suppose like,
By the time you get your setbacks and everything. you're
Right.
Limited by your.
right, you're gonna
City.
need quite a bit more. Yep. that
Building
makes sense.
size, yeah. We'll take a look at
The
that.
brick building across the street from it.
Yeah.
I think there's so big a setbacks, you can't hardly do anything with that building.
Sure.
Something needs to change, though, seriously. I mean, we've got codes or laws that keep us from doing something, and we've got a structure that's gonna fall down if something's not done to it.
Yep.
How much sense does the code make if it doesn't allow for us to restore things that maybe still have restoration,
That
restoration?
would be a prime place if you
Yeah.
could actually.
Yeah,
Water view all the way around.
yeah,
Maybe like a tap
Sorry for
takeover
the
situation.
but if we've
What?
got.
Sorry for the tangent, sorry for the.
No,
But if
Oh,
we've
yeah,
got,
absolutely.
but if we've got the rules that we can't do something, we
Yeah.
need to change the rules.
All right, that's your action plan?
Yep, next part is just the action plan. We've already gone over that a bit. The one thing I do want to check with you guys is because the contract got halved, obviously, we're not going to be getting to all of this next year. But I just wanted to check with you all as to what you think maybe our first priorities should be. I was kind of chatting earlier today, and my thought process was just to start working on those these small business surveys. So it would be where I'll start trying to get some one-on-ones with some of our local business owners, talk to them, find out what kind of struggles they might have been facing over the past couple of years. If there's any types of city programming that would help them, or if there's, what can we do to help everybody be more successful,
That's an
essentially.
excellent idea.
So that would end up taking us through a portion of couple months of just gaining all that information. Obviously, we still have other things that are going on in between. We sent out our RFPs for the community branding, so those will be coming back in February for us to take a look at. So we'll still have things going on, we'll still be meeting, but they'll be pretty quick meetings, I would imagine, until we get more info from these businesses, but I'll try and get as much done as quickly as I can. Schedule a fuel each time I'm in town.
That's the bottom of page 6. That did have a high priority too, so it seems like that's.
I figure that might give us an idea of which ones of the other ones to maybe tackle next.
Yeah, until you know what's going on with the current ones.
And there is a grant that can give us up to $350,000 to start our revolving loan fund. It doesn't open till, I believe, the second quarter of this coming year. So I'll be keeping an eye on that one because I absolutely will be applying for that one for us to make sure that we can establish that fund. I don't know that we'll get the whole 350, but I'm pretty sure considering how much opportunity we have here right now, we'll have a really good argument for needing it, so. That's what I have for the annual report for you, but again, you guys all have copies. If you have questions, thoughts, concerns, want changes made, please let me know and I will do so. Anybody have any questions right now, though?
I don't think so. I think that's
All right. If possible,
just one comment. I guess if you are gonna look at that small business outreach, now that we've identified that's what we should work on parallel with the branding, do you want to put a timeline together of what you want to try to accomplish by April 1st or how many businesses, or maybe you've already looked at that?
Well, I'd like to make sure that when I come into town, I get a chance to see at least 3 different businesses each time I'm in town. I would like to get more than that, obviously. I'll be trying to schedule what I can when I get in. So I would say we should be able to get at least before our April meeting, we should have at least more, like over a dozen businesses that should be done.
Okay.
I would say probably in March, I'll let you know kind of what I've already gotten, because I'm hoping next month to be able to get several of them done, because the only other real things that'll be happening is coming in, the bids, but those shouldn't take too long for me to just,
I think it's
Put in
in
a
the
packet.
range of 18 to 20 businesses.
so I'm gonna try to get all of them done through the first like 3 months, but depends how long each meeting takes, I suppose.
But you have a kind of a template of questions or comments? you
I
wanna ask?
do, yep.
Okay.
And then I also have, what I usually do is I go in and I have my own set of questions that I'll ask people that are a little more discussion dialogue related. And then I also have an online one that I'll ask them to take that'll be questions like, what year did you start your business? Just so that we have some of those, that historical data, because that can help us with knowing what other types of programming might benefit them. So,
Okay, good.
That's a question, we didn't do public comments, but I was actually gonna ask something similar to that, so, sorry, Ron, I didn't mean to overstep, but, part of that with talking to local business owners, was that part of, you mentioned at one of the previous meetings, there was grant money that was available for those business owners to make upgrades to storefronts, things like that, is that what that entails?
the revolving loan fund?
I didn't know if that was a revolving loan fund or if that was more of a grant program.
To say it's usually a grant program, like, 'cause usually people will establish like a fix-up fund. I can check to see about actual grant dollars to establish that, but typically that is established by the budget, the annual budget each year. But different communities do them different ways, so I can certainly,
I was just curious, I thought at one time it was talked about that that was actual grant money that was there for possibly giving the opportunity to kind of beautify things a little bit from the aesthetic standpoint, so I
Yeah.
was kind of curious, and I think I talked to you one time about it, but I didn't know if that was retroactive, if it was grant money, because like I was talking, we've done a lot of, some business at our house with Mike across the street with Waterworks Pump, locally owned, lives here in town.
right,
He's done a lot of work already, so that'd be a cool opportunity to try to do something there too, since he already has put in the effort on something like that, so.
Absolutely.
Just my 2 cents, I don't know.
and with programs,
Perspective.
we would be able to, if we decided to set up a fix-up fund, we would be able to set our parameters as to being able to do it retroactively or not. But typically with state programs, or money that comes in from anything else, if we've already started it, they just, yeah, which is unfortunate, but
Yeah,
that's
just a
typically
question.
how it goes. But I will keep an eye out too, because there's also money that may not be to establish a fix-up fund, but might just be straight up, this is money for you to give to people for fixing up their fronts. So doing it through their program versus through our own.
I don't know if this is, if it's been completed or, but there was a window program within the county, a window replacement program.
For the, like, energy efficiency.
Energy efficiency and just, new windows for homes, but about all the details, I remember hearing about it, but I don't know if we've ever really pursued it or if it's still in place. It may have expired too, I don't know.
Okay.
But I don't think we've heard with a lot of those things, just unless you put something out there, people don't usually come into City Hall asking for programs like that, but
Right. Hopefully we can change that.
unless you've heard of anybody asking about window program.
I've had a few over the past year. When they come in and talk about stuff, that was usually along with like the well program and some other stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Tapping wells, yeah. Okay.
Okay. And then, just so you guys know, with the community, oh, sorry, I was gonna ask, for the, annual report, if I could get an approval of it, then we will put it on the website and we will send it off to council so they have it. So I would just love a motion.
Again. Excellent. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose. Excellent. Yeah, that'd be good information to get out for the public.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so for old business, community branding update, like I mentioned, those are gonna be coming back to us on February 18th. And I know I put it on here. So on your monthly reports, you'll be able to see the different companies that we had sent them out to. There we go. So I sent directly to Cracker Jack Marketing, Hooked Promotions out of Chippewa Falls, Neighborly Creative in Rochester, Severs Creative in Red Wing, Letterworks in Decorah, Tulip Tree in Stewartville. They're all different marketing firms that do this type of community branding projects. And then I also posted it on with the state of Minnesota's website to be able to get some RFPs from them. And then also sent it out to my network of CETA people for them to forward on to their contacts. So hopefully we will get some responses. We've asked for it to be back by the 18th so that I can put it together and have it in our EDA packet for next month. And then we can go ahead and narrow it down and send our recommendation over to council. And then council would be able to pick who they'd like to work with and how they'd like to proceed.
I would like to make some comments about that.
Mhm.
I've watched a lot of the city council meetings. In fact, I was here present for the 4.5 hour meeting that took place the other night. There seems to be a little bit of confusion about the branding. We've got one council member that thinks branding is just simply putting a name on a town like Gold Rush.
Yep.
And this is what we should be known for. I think it really would be good to have an opportunity to educate that it's more, branding is way more than that. And I know
Absolutely.
Jason attempted to, but I think it needs to be spelled out in black and white, because the longer our city council thinks that it's one thing and we know that it's not, the more it gets drug into they don't want to do it, they don't want to support it. I
Right.
think until they understand the entire concept, and I'm not saying the entire city council, but there's a couple of members that just don't seem, they're my age. Our generation is branding means, okay, Kellogg's is cereal, but it's
Yep.
gone a whole new level.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing that I think most people just need to understand is the biggest piece of this is marketing.
Right.
Because they will be putting together marketing materials that we'll be able to
But-
use
but
to
I-
market for commercial,
But I think
residential.
that and I know,
Mhm.
and you know, but I think the council, several members of the council don't understand.
Right,
And I think that whether it's a one-on conversation that somebody has with them or what, because this is like the third time I've heard it out of the same people, and it's like, is nobody educating him so he can fully understand what branding is?
Right.
It's not just slapping a name on a community. The other thing that came out of that meeting was we had a new council member that talked about how you should be going out to the schools and finding resources to do this, find the RFPs within the school system. Now, I'm not sure whether the council has been instructed on when things like this come to them. It's simply a matter of voting for or against, not trying to rework what we're doing or trying to.
well, and
second
actually,
guess.
it already went out. I heard everybody saying, well, they can send it out. It already went out. That was our project. That
Right.
wasn't council's. We didn't need their permission to do it.
Right, but I think it should be made more clear in a council meeting that they don't have to make that decision, because I think if they felt like they did, then it confuses them.
Right,
So let's do what we can, maybe to, whatever we can do to shore up their understanding of what's going on here. Because when I got really anxious when I heard the council members start talking about, well, maybe we should contact schools and stuff, I'm thinking, oh gosh, all this work we've done for the last 6 months, and now somebody's got a new idea. I get it, new
Right.
ideas are great, but we've kind of moved past that,
Yep.
and here we are. So if that can be made a little bit more, if council can become
Right.
more aware of that.
and just so that we all know too, like, we do rely on both of you for that, to make sure that the rest of council understands what's happening when we discuss our projects, because you guys are the ones they'll be looking to for those kind of
Right.
updates.
Right.
But otherwise,
Brand new, right? Is that your name, Jeff?
Daniel.
Daniel.
Jeff quit.
Jeff quit.
Was it third?
I'm 65. You know.
It's okay.
she's also Catholic.
But yeah, Daniel, I know you're brand new at this, but just so you know, yeah, I mean, a lot of times when we bring things to the council, make sure it's well known that we're either voting on this or they've already discussed this and had all the discussion we want or need, and this is how it's moving forward. And I get, bringing in the kids and that kind of thing, but maybe on a different level.
And she actually reached out to me via email to kind of talk about that. My response to her was just that we got grant funding to be able to do this, and those funding dollars have to be used in the way that we stated, and we do specifically state that we're gonna use a professional organization.
Right.
And then I also stated that I just felt that considering this is the first time the city's doing a large branding and marketing project, that professionals would be a better option than students who don't know the community at all.
Right.
And now obviously those branding groups aren't either, but they're professionally trained into how to get that information.
Right, and somehow we got into the weeds of, well, we're always known as Gold Rush, and then it's the colors of Gold Rush and the this and that, and it has
Right.
absolutely nothing to do with it,
Yeah.
so.
So the-
Absolutely.
The discussion came up and I suggested to the council member to reach out to Rebecca, but as we go through the council agenda, we're going to try and streamline a little bit more.
Thank you, yeah,
So we eliminate those discussions, or we have a workshop.
yeah,
And so those are the things we're looking at, how we can get through our meetings in a fairly quicker time than
yeah.
so.
Well, and maybe part of it is we just let them know, these are updates. This isn't a discussion.
Right.
It's an update. You have your updates.
It's no action item.
Right. If you have
Right.
questions, you can have your question answered by one of you two gentlemen, but otherwise, yeah, there's nothing to discuss.
So at the beginning.
Somewhere in there.
Somewhere in that 5-hour meeting, we created a template of how to submit. So that template is going to extend to committees as well. So when committees want to put things on the agenda, they will have access to that
Right.
template. And within that template, you will be able, whoever's submitting will be able to designate this as a discussion and action item. And FYI, has there been public outreach? This was the outcome.
And that was part of your presentation.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah, I
that
got
was
lost
excellent.
in the
Yeah.
3 or 4 hours of the.
Well, it came up before we got to hear you, that's what it was.
Yes, I
Yeah.
think it did come up before that, but then there was the action item. So that's officially adopted. So that
Good
is what,
deal.
what Mayor Ryland was talking about is the streamlining, but that's going to extend to committees as well.
Good,
So EDA can submit those items and they can make those things clear on
What's
on the
going on.
agenda.
yeah.
And that information will be distributed to council members more efficiently.
Thank you for your whole,
Fingers crossed,
Yeah.
that's the last 4.5, 5-hour meeting. we
I
have,
hope so. That was a long night.
You make a lot of people very happy if that's actually the case. All right.
Be the talk of all the city administrators in the region, so.
No. Yeah, and also the community branding project, it didn't come up as in like the EDA said, let's do a community branding project. It was more a city staff discussion that kind of came about with trying to deal with the fact that Gold Rush has moved itself to being independent. Well, I shouldn't say moved itself, but it is now independent. And so giving us that, trying to find ourselves that marketing piece is kind of where it came from. And that's when we applied for the grant funding. And then when we were awarded, that's when we said, okay, let's put something together, but we'll make sure that council has the say on who's gonna be the company that actually comes in and does it. But we'll make sure that we go through and give a good recommendation as well.
So is the plan to have these come to the March meeting then with the recommendation then?
I'll be coming at the February meeting, because I'm having them, they're due on February 18th. They got sent out as soon as our last meeting got done. So they were already
The
out.
25th, okay.
Yep.
Okay. Excellent.
So, yep, they were already out and done, and we should have them back by February 18th so that we can have them in front of us at our meeting, and then they can be in front of council at their March meeting.
Yes.
With a final recommendation.
Yep. Because what I'll do is as soon as I get all of the recommendations together, I typically just make a quick one-page spreadsheet that shows, what we asked for and if each one met those asks. And then what their total prices and information is so that you can see them all together and compare them. And then I'll also give you access, obviously, to all of the proposals that come in. But as far as being able to make a quick decision on things or make a recommendation, I will have those one-pagers for you guys to be able to kind of mark up
Gotcha.
however you'd like.
Are those proposals going to be public
They will
or
be,
just redacted? public?
They can, I mean, they're basically public.
Okay,
I mean,
because I think that could help educate what this actually is, because even just coming in as a new person, I don't have the history of what you guys have done prior. And a lot of it's very confusing for somebody that
I'm
doesn't
sure. Oh,
have
yeah.
any kind of background in business or development or any of that. So, I mean, just the education portion of it, but I think that if they're providing detailed reports of what they're
Mhm.
capable of doing and what they're doing, that we should be able to make at least portions of those.
Right.
I mean, prices obviously not, but what they're providing, I think that that would be a good thing
Absolutely.
to allow public to see.
Yep. Because I think what we'll do is in this committee, we'll make sure that we narrow it down. Obviously, like if somebody comes in $8,000 over what everybody else is asking, we're going to just eliminate that individual. I'm guessing in here, I'm not saying that I will do that. But we'll get it narrowed down to like maybe the top 3. Hopefully, there's lots and lots that come in. And then those 3 would then be sent on for council to deliberate over, which would mean, I think maybe those 3 we would make public, like put out there.
Sure.
Just to kind of make sure that it's not so much information for people to have to
Yeah.
try and compare, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But with that, your recommendation would come, you'd give the top 3, but you'd have a recommendation for a finalist that you would, okay.
Yep, we'd say if it was our choice, this is who we'd pick. But ultimately, since it's city branding, this is gonna be a council decision, so. We did our due diligence, this is who we think you should go with, but you got the final
And I
call.
just want to make sure that, I want to make sure you guys are doing that, because like we discussed earlier, it's a recommending body, you guys should have this. This is what needs to go, so council can say, yep, looks good, do their vote and move
Yep.
forward.
But just to be clear, though, we are a recommending body for some projects, but we are a decision-making body, which is different than other subcommittees. We do have our own budgets, we do have the ability to do our own activities based on that, but this one definitely is a.
Quick question about the study or the quote response. We didn't specify it, but on the last page, there was an estimated timeline for completion through implementation. So typically, what are these 8-month programs, 1-year programs, or what's your expectations?
I've seen some go in 3 and I've seen some go for a full year. It'll all depend on what their own structure is for it, and it also depend on how much we want done. Because a lot of times they'll give us a big list of different options and say, okay, well, this option is this much money. If you add this, it's gonna be this. And so it all depends on kind of what add-ons we would put with it, like, do we want final products when it comes to marketing, or do we want marketing recommendations? Do we want them to actually develop our logos? Do we want them to recommend individuals to do it for us? If they're going to be doing the actual physical work, obviously we'll see that bump up, but that timeline also will get longer. So I think it'll all depend on the different companies that we get in, but I would say honestly, on average, 6 months.
All right, I just had no idea, really. Okay. Good.
And I'm sure that they'll be looking at doing some sort of community engagement in more closer to springtime versus while we're still looking at potential snow or rain.
Okay, good, thanks.
Grant program updates, nothing really new right now. We're still waiting to hear on the Age-Friendly Minnesota grant. We should hear about that before our next meeting. I believe it's like February 12th or something, 15th?
5th,
Was it the 5th?
yeah.
Okay, there we go. So we should know very soon if we got any of that money for the age-friendly. Because I know, Rylan, you guys have been chatting about that too. Because apparently the age-friendly Orinoco, or was it the county? The county got funds.
Age-friendly county, Olmsted County, they're having another program, it's called a TAP, technical something. Where there might be some money for audits too, so we don't know where they overlap, if they overlap at all.
Okay.
But when we originally started with the age-friendly Orinoco, we were, when we got going, we were really wanting to be part of the Olmsted County. But as we got into it, the Orinoco age-friendly decided let's just kind of pursue as much as we can by ourselves. So that's what led us to getting us incorporated, we're nonprofit now.
Mhm.
We applied for an EIN and we've also applied for a 1023 easy form. So we're a standalone nonprofit entity. And so we got to kind of watch the funding where it comes from.
Absolutely.
And how it's used, so. And Dan Conway from the Homestead County Senior Department or whatever, I don't know the exact title, but. So he's kind of been our mentor the whole time for the last
Okay.
2.5, 3 years, so. So he'll guide us through the whole process.
Excellent. All right, and then the only other thing that I wanted to bring up is the fact that the outdoor recreation grant from the state of Minnesota is going to be coming up. That program offers up to $350,000 for a 50% match on any park projects. They do like to focus in on ones that are more ADA compliant issues. I was tempted to reach out to Parks and Rec to see if they wanted to do for the walking paths. Because I figure that's probably a good ADA compliance
Yeah, it's a-
project, and I wanted to kind of find out how you guys felt if I used some of my time on that. It is a rather big grant, but I've done one for Orinoco before, so I already have a majority of the other details, but I wanted to see how you guys thought about my putting some of my hours towards that.
Would that type of grant cover feasibility, engineering feasibility study to design the plan?
No, because
That's
they would,
typically what we've done in the first is we go to our city engineer, we spend $5,000-6,000 to do a design feasibility. So they can do the design. And then from that, we ask them to go out and get quotes. But I'm just curious what this grant would cover if we decide to use it for trails.
yeah, I'll check into that. I'll double check.
Because that would help the budget on the city side
Mhm.
and,
So we would still have to come up with 175,000 to receive the.
That's yep. Well, no, we'd have to, 50-50 match. So if we put in 100,000, they'll give us 100,000.
Gotcha.
Yep. But if we're looking at already doing some of these improvements as a city, then, I mean, really, we'll just hopefully be able to knock half of it
we
off.
talked about like Riverwood Hills paths, we'd like to finish those.
Mhm.
Done one of them from Estes Lane down to the playground, but. we had
Well, and
two,
I know
three other-
Parks had their agenda as far as the different things that they wanted to do, so I could certainly just go off of their priority list. If there is any park stuff that they are planning on doing, we could certainly go ahead and put that together, but they do offer that program every single year. So it's definitely not something where we have to do it, but,
What's the timeline for it?
it's not due until the end of March, so we've got time.
We'd have to sit down and look at budget stuff, because the city doesn't, we didn't this year, because it's not something they've ever done, say, oh, Parks and Rec, let's set aside money for park and recreational activity.
Right.
It's not something the city's ever done, so we don't have a budget to build new playgrounds or build this or that. It's always repair and maintenance costs for anything that needs upkept.
Okay.
So we'll have to try and see if there's something,
Okay.
But it could be, if I understand it correctly, it can be any amount, as long as we're willing to match it, right?
Yep, exactly. It's just up to the 350.
So if it's $20,000 to resurface Memorial Ball Field and
Mhm.
get that, and we would just have to come up with half of that.
Yep, exactly.
Some-
So, yeah, if there are any park projects, let me know. You can get back to me, I guess, by the next meeting as well. Let me know if there's anything you guys want done. Otherwise, I'll check in with Parks and Rec and bring you guys a little more info next month. And that is all I have for you all. Unless you have anything for me.
Where would you suggest me go to catch up on minutes?
All of the minutes should be on the EDA page of the website. It should have everything except the minutes from our last meeting, but you have those in front of you. So, all of our past ones should be on there though.
Okay,
if they're not, I'm sure Rec will.
Well, and feel free to email me anytime.
Sure.
Do you have my card yet?
I have your email now.
Okay, perfect. I was gonna say, feel free to call me anything, anytime, and I'll be happy to help give you updates on any projects.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
It'll take me a while to get caught up, I believe, but. there's
Oh, you got a lot
going on.
to learn like right now. Yeah, absolutely.
A lot going on.
Yep, and I am a firm believer there are no stupid questions, so trust me, I won't be rolling my eyes behind your back, I promise.
You can do it in front of me and I don't get insulted easily.
There we go.
Anything else from your, update?
Nothing else I think of note.
Just one comment regarding the residential development, on your list.
Yeah, I don't know if we talked about that.
What's that?
Did we talk about that already? See?
Oh, the residential development? I mostly just mentioned that we've been discussing residential development, but yeah, I did attend on January 9th. WSE came in to talk about a 56 unit condo development. That's the one that no, that was a different one than what was being discussed at council, so.
Yeah. Where the 56 units going, potentially?
This one would be up by
Across the street,
two sisters, right?
east of Two Sisters, across the street.
Ah.
It's this big L-shaped property. It goes around the Glen Motor Coaches.
Yeah.
Right here,
Sure.
goes all the way, this is a B2, and that will have to be rezoned to an R2, and there, it's this whole area here.
Okay.
And it's, I think it's 14 buildings of 4 quads,
Oh,
and so,
and who's the builder?
WSE?
I've heard of that, but what is the?
engineering company.
Yeah.
Either Widsith or WSE in this community, you call one or the other.
And do they own the land already?
No,
They're closing on it.
they're the engineers on it.
This is, no, they're for Linda King's property is Winseth.
No, I said either in Rochester, you either go with WSE or
Oh,
Widsith.
yeah,
Oh,
And WSE is the other
yeah,
contractor.
or SEH or.
Yeah,
Sure. So these folks, the whoever is, I mean, they're representatives of the owner, but the owner of the land already owns land, plans to develop it.
yes.
He purchased it recently.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
who
So there is
purchased
a
it?
community, there's a planned community engagement meeting on February the 11th. It's gonna be here at City Hall, and the engineer for WSE is sending out the invites to the Cedar Woodlands, but it's meant to be open to the public.
February 11th.
Yeah, it hasn't been posted yet, because we just got it reserved today.
That's soon. Is it 6:30 usually?
What time did it say?
5:45 to 7:30 is what they reserved it for.
Okay.
So it's getting like 6 to
Yeah.
7:30.
City Hall.
7:30, yeah.
On.
So you hear more details about that, but it's,
Yeah, so thank you for bringing that up, because yeah, if you guys would like to attend that, I
It's
encourage
currently
you.
zoned that they can do that, so there's no zoning issue.
A majority of.
one issue is that 2.6 acres where the mound sewer system is at. That's part of this B2 this little area
The
right
little piece
here.
there. Yep.
That's a B2, which is matches this here.
Right.
So that's what would be a rezone request to R2 to match this, so it's all,
Do you envision pushback on that?
I'm sorry.
Do you envision pushback on getting that rezoned?
I have no idea, but I know in my conversations with Brett, they recognize this is R2, but that's what they're having the community engagement meeting. They're sending out emails to the Cedar Woodlands HOA to make sure they're invited, but it is open to the public too, so.
Yep. And what they're kind of looking at is not necessarily a development where you have multi-lots. Because it would be those fourplexes, it'd be kind of like a plan unit development. So it'd be all one big lot, and they'd be run by an HOA. So they'd have someone taking care of their snow and all those kind of things, as well. So, covenants and all of the,
That meeting's February 11th.
yes.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll be able to have them come and meet with us again.
So, yeah, okay. Anything else from your report? I think you covered everything.
Yep, I think that should be good.
So is there any walk-on items? Unless I missed something, I think that's.
I got one.
Yeah.
I did attend the 4.5 hour city council meeting the other night, or I guess it was 5 hours.
Close to
Oh.
5, yeah,
4 hours and 52 minutes.
It was a long night.
seconds
But-
matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw text messages at like 11:30.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what was interesting is I sat in the back row because I was only here for one purpose and, but I sat in the back row and I sat behind the developers of the Gold Rush Crossing. And so I kind of got what was happening, but I didn't get what was happening, but as somebody who has developed commercial property, I was very frustrated for these folks because what they were interpreting was that they were gonna come to this meeting and just ask the question about annexation and figuring out whether they should annex with the city or not, and so on and so forth. But what happened is, from my perspective, sitting in the back row, not knowing any of the background, but our city attorney comes on and rakes them over the coals for half an hour about some kind of letter or about some kind of thing that they haven't done, or I they haven't crossed, or T they hadn't crossed, and brings up some anonymous letter that talks about very, very demeaning things about this group that somebody had sent in, and brings it up and puts it right up on the screen for everybody to read. But by the time I got home that night, it was on Facebook too for everybody to read, and it wasn't pretty what they were saying about this development group that I don't know really from Adam. I'm new to the community, I'm new to this town. I don't know who these people are, but I just know they're developers trying to do something. They were, in their little discussion between those folks, they were, when they came to the city council meeting, they had no idea they were gonna listen to an attorney talk for a half an hour to 45 minutes from the city about why the council shouldn't vote on what they're proposing, because I don't think they were planning on proposing anything. They just wanted to ask for some guidance about what to do next. Then we listened to Joe Palin talk for another half an hour about why they hadn't done all the things they needed to do. What I felt like walking away from it was, these guys haven't been given a roadmap of what needs to be done. And the city council and the city people that we pay, our attorney and our engineer, we're just basically throwing up, oh, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. And they're just like, well, we've done this and we've done that. It was like nobody had communicated in this whole thing efficiently or effectively. And we wasted 2 hours of citizens' time because, and there was no point to it. And as a developer myself years ago, I understand the amount of money and time and stress that goes into developing commercial property. It's not easy. And if you've got all kinds of this hoop here and then that hoop there, but it's not spelled out for you, you're jumping through the hoops. But if you never get anywhere, you're going to become frustrated and you're going to say to hell with it. Now, I think the big question was whether they should annex or not, and whether they should hook up to the city sewer system. Now, I may be completely wrong. This is just what I was taking from the conversation. But somebody had told them that if they hook up to city sewer, it would cost them to do so. But what I think somebody re-explained to them was, and very quietly, Joe Palin said, no, each business would hook up to the city sewer. So it was just a simple miscommunication between two people that could have taken place 6 months ago in an office, but nobody's taken the time with these people. And I'm like, again, I don't know these people from Adam. Maybe they are the charlatans that somebody pointed out in a letter, but let's at least have some order and some transparency on how people that want to develop Orinoco can proceed. It reminded me so much of the 3 years that it took me and my husband to build a garage in this town. Too many people telling you one thing and not another, and you never get anything done. So I was quite disturbed. I thought, if we want to do economic development in Orinoco, that's great, but let's have something a little bit more user-friendly than what I witnessed with our own paid personnel, with our attorney and with Joe Palin.
And I will say, I do think once the codes have been updated, that things like this will be a lot easier, because I know that there's been questions when we met earlier in the month, there were definitely questions
I
where we
agree.
were like, oh, we don't know.
I agree. I think that could have been communicated to these developers, though.
Right.
They spent 2 years developing this so far, and they put money in it. We had a guy in tears because he's paying interest on money he's borrowed to develop this. And all it came down to was everybody in that core group, city attorney, Joe Palin, the development group, need to have a conversation. That's all it boiled down to. And so.
Yep.
That's my walk-on item.
So there's, you raised some good points, and there's a lot that has been discussed. But it's, you know, the key, I guess, is our annexation process. And that kicks off with a petition letter.
And maybe they knew that, maybe they didn't, Ryland,
They knew it, so,
but I didn't know it,
no.
and I think they're deciding that they don't even want to annex now. I don't know, I'm not gonna speak for them, but they're like, this process is so cumbersome. Why would we do this? Why don't we just go with the township? Now, does that cut Orinoco out of property taxes? I would think so.
Sure would.
So
Yeah.
if we're paying two people, an
And water and
attorney,
sewer hookups.
yeah, and a Joe Palin, I think that they should have answers for these people.
Well, I think there's a genuine effort to make it happen, and I believe discussions are ongoing. And I think it'll work out, but those things are discussed by our city engineer and our attorney, and so I think they're talking, it's all a matter of getting down and having the discussion too, so.
Right, and I guess for me, it's like, how long does it take to have a discussion? If we're paying you, the city of Orinoco is paying you to do this job, and it takes 2 years for you to have this discussion with developers, is that a good use of how we're paying our resources?
There's-
More complicated.
I'd rather just
Well,
not
it
get
might
into-
be, but as sitting as a person in the loft, it wasn't more complicated than
So-
that.
Kathy, if I may
Yeah.
take a shot at explaining this. So obviously, there's some issue or concern about the date of when, 2 years, I wasn't here during that time, so I don't know if there was, but the first meeting was brought to my attention as city administrator was in June, July time, right about around the Hamilton development time, where we had our first sit-down meeting with him, myself, Joe Palin, Bill Carlson, and we sat down and looked at their conceptual designs, just like we've done with the most recent
Right.
stuff. And we told them, this is the process, this is what we saw with Hamilton, here's the recommended steps you should do. And then here's the process of what needs to happen after that. So in June, everything was kind of laid out to them in that meeting. They knew what the steps were. They were told about annexation, they were told about this stuff, but there was also, it was all just conceptual. There wasn't, we can't give them answers to questions
Right,
when they don't provide us with details. So they get through, they do their basic steps, they did that stuff, and then it came time to annexation, and they were told the next step is to annex into the city. And they were told that back in early October by myself. And then nothing. They didn't do anything. They wanted handheld through the process.
well, and that's okay. If you want handheld to build, put how many millions of dollars?
Yeah.
Don't we have somebody here to handhold?
No, we don't.
Right
We don't have
now?
staff here.
No, I know we don't.
So,
But you're saying that the annexing would precede approval of their variance that they're applying for?
yeah, we can't do anything with land that's not in the city.
If we were to approve their variance before they annexed, it would completely cut off Orinoco from developing south.
Yeah, there's a lot of other,
So there's a lot that goes.
this
That was
is the
the
quick
point.
version.
Yeah.
Right.
That makes sense.
Guess my point is, why don't you guys have all those discussions somewhere else besides the 2 hours in
Now,
the city council
With
meeting?
that, this discussion that happened should have been a staff meeting.
Yeah,
However, it was requested by a council member to be on there, and even if I had said no, I had the feeling it would have still been brought up. And I think it was beneficial for Mike and Joe to say their piece, because the email we got was a demand letter from their group that we will do this as a city or else. And they gave us a timeline and said, this needs to be done by Friday, the 24th, which is not how it works. We have to follow laws and rules and timelines when posting meetings. They wanted answers, and we told them that this was not how this works. It's not how to do this. So that's why.
so it
they
shouldn't have
were-
even been put on the agenda.
I'll agree, yeah, it should have been on the
Okay,
agenda.
so why is it on the agenda then? Because,
Because council members can request to put things on the agenda.
wow,
That's the
okay,
way it
Well,
works.
just like you guys can in here. I mean,
yeah.
it's just a matter of how much
It was
time you
just-
dedicate.
Yeah, there wasn't,
But
there
I
wasn't,
agree that it should not have necessarily been an item on the agenda, but I know also that if they're requesting it, I gotta put it on there. So, cause even if I take it off, they can still add it at the beginning, so it's one of those things where I'd rather put something on there and prepare all of council instead of them showing up, having something added and being blindsided by.
And I just don't think that the developers were aware that Joe and the attorney were gonna weigh in. They were dumbfounded by that.
They had email communications prior to the
They had-
meeting.
Yeah.
They sent their emails, we sent a response back.
And really, it was a discussion for council. They never should have spoken about anything. The way this works, they should have never spoken at all. It should have been a speaking matter between council of an update more or less of what's going on. And Joe and Mike were in their rights because they represent the city. They have to tell the city council members why this is good or bad for the
I
city.
understand.
So that's their thing. So again, I agree, there should be a better way to say, hey, how do we get from point A to point Z? And the city needs to do that, and there's always hope that we can get something put together and outline. I think that would be a great project for EDA and P and Z to kind of work on to say, hey, we want to bring these groups in here. How do we do this from your end? So that way the city can have this paperwork to be able to say, all right, you guys want to develop, this is the process, this is what it is. Instead of always relying on, oh, we gotta have a meeting with the city, these people to constantly pass this information.
And I'm hoping that giving the 2 hours of everybody airing out, hopefully that's wiping the slate clean and starting
I was hopeful
from,
too.
that's where I'm at, is I'm hoping that everybody walked away with, okay, let's sit down and let's work together and get this done. Now everybody understands everybody's position, whether it was right or wrong to be on the agenda or anything else, doesn't matter anymore. Day one was the day after that meeting.
Yeah,
That's the way I'm hoping that everybody's
I
looking
hope
at
so
it going
too. I hope so
forward.
too, because like I said, as somebody who's developed property before, it's tough. It's a tough process too.
It is.
And when you're not given when you don't feel like you're given clear, precise directions, then it becomes even more frustrating. And then when you've got money on the line, you just add to it. One other question is, one of their big things was changing this to business instead of the housing that it is. It's now a housing thing. This is our land use plan, right?
Yes.
Why can't we amend a land use plan?
We can, but if we do, then they can build in the township still with the new zoning and completely cut us off from annexing anything in the future south
Is
of.
that what the recommendation was?
That was what the lawyer was saying, was
Okay.
we cannot do the variance to rezone that prior to the annexation because
Do
they
we have to do a variance to change the land use?
You have to do an ordinance.
What we would have to do,
It's an ordinance. The future land use is meant to be a guide.
Right,
It's a guide. It's not a zoning map.
right.
So that's why we kind of temper discussions. Because that's, when land comes in, it's any annexed land from the township outside city limits comes in as R1. So then it goes into be into in this case, B2 is what they're asking for,
Mhm.
so. But that's, they could be all R1 on our future land use map, but they want to rezone it to B2. So it's just a guide. It's not a zoning map like we have over here in the left, so.
Just,
But
it was a tough
it's
one to
been
watch.
interpreted a lot of different ways and that's what the challenge we have with it. That's a 2020 map and it'd probably be good to update it again, because things have changed 5 years from now, so.
It really should be updated annually, if not biannually, twice a year. Most cities update their future land use plan every 6 months, 6 to 12 months.
would that be something in the scope of the EDA to look at, or is that more P and Z?
That's where it comes out of, so.
I think it'd be a good conjunction project though, if you guys are looking and say, hey, we actually think this area would be great for development of this. To kind of have that input with planning and zoning, although it does fall more under planning and zonings. But
So, okay. All right, any other walk-on items? Good discussion. Hope it helped with your understanding. and
I hope so,
questions
yeah,
answered.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just a long night.
Okay.
Hopefully everybody cleared their air and.
I think so. It seemed
can
like
move
it.
Forward.
Just, yeah,
The end of the discussion looked good.
yeah, it did.
They both apologized to each other. and-
I don't know what 2 years would have done since we just hooked up to sewer and they would have needed sewer to.
I have no
to do
idea
it anyway,
either.
But
I have
again,
no idea.
so.
I think the thing that probably was the most, upsetting to me was the anonymous letter that was brought up. I just think that that's, if somebody's gonna send an anonymous letter, that's great, but does it need to come up at a city council meeting and be used as an example for this is how people feel? Well, I don't know that it is.
Well, and that shouldn't have been in the packet and
No.
probably shouldn't have been on the screen either, or it was not in the packet, sorry.
And then it was on Facebook
Intentionally
and-
not in the packet. And that letter got screen capped from the meeting to put on
Yeah.
Facebook.
Yeah.
But he was using that letter as saying, you have talked to some community members, but everyone should get their chance to
Then,
have their meeting. But yes, it wasn't put in there because it wasn't signed, so.
it was absolutely not legitimate if it's not signed, really.
So, I mean, yeah,
All right, with that, I make a motion for the meeting adjourned.
So moved.
second,
All in favor,
everybody.
say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Sorry, didn't mean to make the